one thing. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our very first webinar and our very first family virtual meeting. So as it is our first webinar, we ask for a little bit of patience, but we've practiced and we are well versed and know how to do this. So hopefully we'll have no other technological difficulties. We worked them all out as we practiced and checked all this technology out. So as you'll recall, prior to 2020, we used to have about 2 family meetings per year. But unfortunately, a number of people couldn't attend that. So we thought that we would try now that everybody's much more comfortable with Zoom, we thought that we would try an evening webinar in the hopes that we'd get more families on. And it looks like we do have a number of people who are able to join us compared to our in-person morning webinars that we used to have. It is so nice to see so many of your names. Like I said in the beginning, we can't see you, but we know you're there and we can see your name. So it's nice to see all of your names. The purpose of this meeting is to help us connect with you kind of in a weird way, but also to educate you on things like our board and our funding, our internal practices of audits, and how do we ensure quality for the services that we provide. Things that you might not know that take place, but are important to the overall well-being of our house. As we present, some of you had sent in some of your questions, but as we present, if you have some more questions, there is a Q&A function on the bottom. Michelle Petrino will be moderating that one. And so hopefully at the end of this presentation, we'll have a few minutes to address any of those questions. And just like I said in my email, if it's something very specific to your loved one situation, if you could just address that to your program director or site manager, or even one of the directors who's on the call tonight. And if we don't get to all of your questions, we will at some point get back to you, and by the next week, and we'll answer your questions in case we don't have time for all those. So all of your questions will be answered. I'd like to take the next few minutes to allow our panelists to introduce themselves, and they're going to share their name, their title, and about how long they've been with Our House. And we are going to begin with Natalie.
Evening, everyone. I'm Natalie Tortorello. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Our House. This July will be 7 years that I've been part of the team. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tori Kenya, the Senior Director of Residential Operations. This October, I will have been here for 14 years.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Casada. I'm the Senior Director of Day Services. Also this October, I will have been here for 9 years.
Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Judy. I'm the Board Certified Behavior Analyst and Clinical Supervisor for the agency, and I've been here more or less around 8 years.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Colford, Vice President of Development, and I've been with Our House for 11 years.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Petrino. I'm the Assistant Director of Development, and yesterday I was here 7 months.
Thank you, everyone. So as you can see, our team is a well-established team, and Michelle has been a really nice addition to the Our House team. So we're happy to have her, and obviously everybody else. So let's start, and I'm going to give me a moment. Okay, I guess I should have. Okay, everything good? Everybody can see everything, so we just start introduction. So I want to start with the structure of Our House, because I want everybody to understand how Our House is structured. So we do have a board of trustees that oversees Our House. There are about 18 individuals who sit on that. They have a fiduciary responsibility to oversee the implementation and execution of respective policies and practices in Our House. They have a variety of areas that they're knowledgeable in, including finance, legal, human resources, social services, DDD, real estate, banking, very diverse group of functional areas. And then also a number of them also are parents or siblings to some of our served individuals. I and Kathy are responsible for the day-to-day operations of I for Our House Inc. and Kathy for Our House Foundation. But I report directly to the board, and Kathy reports to me and to the board. The board meets generally on a quarterly basis, and they are again there for the to ensure that that Our House provides the best services and focuses on the general direction of Our House. So obviously I report to them. Natalie, who's our Chief Operating Officer, reports to me. Tori, who's our Senior Director of Residential Operations, reports to me. Diane Driscoll, who helps develop our programs and our houses, reports to me. And then our facilities, our maintenance, our facilities guys report to her. Kathy, who's our Vice President of Development, also reports to me. Nicole reports to me, and then our receptionist reports to me. So that's the team that directly reports to me. Under Natalie, she has the Director of Quality and Compliance. She has Human Resources, Finance, and then the Director of Supports, who's Ken Goss, and unfortunately he couldn't be here tonight. Tori has a number of people who are under her. Tori oversees our residential program. She has 4 area directors, and each area director has a number of programs or houses that report to them. And then she also has the Director of Health Services, our Nurse Jackie, who I'm sure many of you know, Nurse Jackie, who then oversees our team of nurses. So those are the areas that Tori oversees. Nicole oversees our day programs, like she said, and so she oversees our speech pathologist, who's our part-time speech pathologist. She oversees any floating direct service professionals. She oversees all 5 directors of the Hope Autism Solutions programs, all 4 directors of our Volunteer Action Program. She technically oversees Danielle, who's on this call. And then she also has an assistant director of day services. So of all of us, Nicole wins with the performance evaluations every year that she gets to do the most. But we try and help her out. We also have our Director of Supports, who oversees our employment training specialists, and also our Assistant Director of Supports, who's Roxanne, and many of you know her. So the overview of our services. Our house provides services to over 350 adults. We serve only adults. The only kids that we serve are in our, and they're not really kids, they're 16 to 18-year-olds that are in our employment services program and helping them transition out. But our house focuses on adults in our day programs and residential services. We focus on things like teaching life skills, cooking, hygiene, building self-esteem and independence. And we meet our individuals where they are and help to make them as independent as possible in their different areas and for their individual needs. We foster social connections. We help them with finding jobs. We help them stay safe and teach them how to stay safe. And then we also have them out in the community so that they understand community relationships and workplace, and also our community is integrated with us as well. We have 18 group homes. We are landlord technically to those 18 group homes. So that is, I'm sure you know that the maintenance of your own house is a lot, and especially after COVID and being in it so much. So you can imagine our 18 houses and how those are, it's a lot of work. In those 18 houses or supervised apartments, we have 80 people who live there. They are all licensed and they are all staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, holidays, everything. We are there. We also have 6 supported living apartments or condos where 11 residents live. Those are unlicensed, and our staff come in and provide them support for a few hours a day. We have 5, like I said, 5 Hope Autism Solutions programs, and that is one of our day programs where we serve about 105 individuals there. We have 4 volunteer action programs where 84 individuals are there. And those programs are usually located in one location. And then we have 2 programs within that one location. So for example, in our Livingston location, we have a Hope Autism Solutions program and a volunteer action program, also known as VAP. You're probably wondering why we don't have that fifth VAP. We have one program location that doesn't have enough space for us to have both of those programs. So we only have a Hope Autism Solutions program, and that is located in our Woodbridge location. We also have an employment services area where we serve about 110 clients, and that's where we go in. We help them find jobs, keep those jobs, mentor them in those jobs, help them deal with it, with their workplace. We provide in-home supports where we have about 20 clients. We go into their houses and we provide supports within their houses. We have speech and behavioral supports, recreation, and then of course nursing, like I said, with Nurse Jackie. And then we actually have a dietitian on staff as well. I'm going to turn this over to Tori, who's going to talk a little bit about our residential and nursing.
Hi, everybody. Michelle touched on a couple of things already, but we did open our first group home in Summit in 1980, if you can believe it. And now we have 18 different locations. And as Michelle mentioned, 14 of them are group homes and 4 of them are supervised apartments. The supervised apartments are slightly different in terms of the structure. There are 2-family apartments located in a 2-family house. So the staffing patterns tend to be a little bit different, but the overall model and mission remains the same. We do have direct care staff in all of those locations that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and obviously 365 days a year. We work on many things in the homes, but some examples are working on improving their skills, such as minor home maintenance, areas of self-care, daily living skills, meal preparation, cooking, budgeting of their funds, purchasing items that they may need, and other things like that. All of their goals and plans are outlined in their individualized service plans, which I'm sure you've all been a part of, and help us identify goals that they can work on throughout the year. Also within the homes, I do have a team of nurses that makes up our health services department, as well as a dietitian who works with us in the homes to develop menus that are various different ways of incorporating healthy items in their diets as they're prescribed. And the nurses provide a lot of on-site and hands-on training for a lot of the medical diagnoses that we see, or any individuals that have adaptive equipment, or if they need to use insulin, EpiPens, et cetera. The nurses are there to perform those trainings on an as needed and annual basis to remain in compliance with licensing and DDD standards. And that's kind of just a very broad overview of what goes on in the residential department, but I'm going to hand it over to Nicole so she can talk a little bit about day services.
Thank you. And I apologize for my dogs barking if they are in the back. I do have the door closed. Just need the slide changed. Thank you. So Michelle touched on this as well, but our day programs provide a variety of adult supports for individuals with developmental disabilities that have varying levels of supervision needs. Hope Autism Solutions, which was established in 2013, is an innovative person-centered program for individuals aged 21 with autism. This program offers volunteer work, life skills development, such as cooking with Nona, which is a favorite activity, and structured recreational programming like soccer, yoga, basketball, karate, which everybody thought that we were crazy for implementing, but the participants love it. There are currently 5 Hope Autism Solutions programs. Our second program is the Volunteer Action Program. We say 100%, that was probably more of the case before COVID, but it's probably closer to about 60% right now. This is a community-based volunteer program for individuals with a variety of disabilities, a little bit more independent than our Hope Autism Solutions programs. The VAT program offers activities in the community, such as delivering Meals on Wheels, assisting the office staff at the main administrative office and also at a few other office complexes with tasks such as shredding. And there are currently 4 BAT programs. Pretty much managed by the residential department, but day services has some say in the recreational activities and the community inclusion. Many of our served individuals attend special activities such as sporting events, concerts, and dining out in the community, also known as lunch club. These activities are optional and are funded by each person who chooses to participate. And throughout the pandemic, we offered virtual activities as an alternative to keep everybody engaged. So we had some art activities, we had weekly coffee club on Fridays, and we had coffee delivered to all the houses. And then we had daily yoga every day, Monday through Friday, and we continue to have daily yoga every day now. So that's it. And then I think we're turning it over to Danielle.
Yes, thanks, Nicole.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to talk briefly about behavior supports and speech. So behavior supports is provided primarily by myself, who's overseeing, in addition to Hank, who's the other BCBA, he's part-time, and a team of behaviorists and also registered behavior technicians. So we work together to serve individuals both in residential and day, looking at how the goals that are set forth in those ISPs that Tori talked about, look based off of their acuity factor, or either as an individual budget as outlined in the supports manual. So behavior supports overall includes skill acquisition and also the reduction of problem behavior. And those goals essentially look to make some productive lives for the individuals we serve. And examples of those services could include helping with transition to either from their school entitlement programs to our programs, or transition into residential, and or just transition across day program, or currently transitioning out of the home because they've been home for so long due to COVID and back into some of their regular activities. Also completing functional behavior assessments and behavior support plans and skill development, either via task analysis or other types of assessments. Also, we look at conducting a series of record reviews, and that's essentially how we determine the appropriate amount of services that the person needs, observations and data collection. Some of those services may include interviewing individuals as yourself as the guardians, the staff, and the individual, if that's possible, in addition to reviewing the data. And then we look at all these components together and determine the appropriate level of behavioral supports for that person. We also do annual reviews of the behavior support plan and modifications as needed. And one good thing about our house is that we present all plans to the Behavior Support Committee and the Human Rights Committee, regardless of the level. Some of our circulars, as far as the DUD circulars, dictate who needs to review those plans. We take the extra step to just review all the plans, so that we have the checks and balances. And those committees represent individuals across both within our house and also individuals within the community, and also guardians. So once all those committees approve the plan and everyone signs off, the staff will train both residential and also day on the implementation of the plan, and we carry it out and do checks and balances after that. And everything is basically in line with the agency handbook that you guys get during intake, and the division circulars, as well as the BACB, which is the board that governs the BCBAs, and also the RBTs, our ethics committees and things like that. We also offer speech pathology. So I believe Michelle talked about Melanie, who's our speech and language pathologist. So she is trained to provide the service for both individual and group speech therapy, if that's a service that is needed for the individual. And speech therapy can be obtained through the one's individual budget, and also implemented in the group home and or the program. So next will be Natalie. She will go over support services in place of Ken.
Okay, you guys are going to be hearing a whole bunch from me. I have a lot of slides coming up. So first, I'm pinch hitting for Ken Gauss. Some of you do know him. He is our Director of Support Services, and he and his wife welcomed a baby today, so that's why he's not on. Support Services is our newest department. We combined supported employment, formerly known as ES, along with in-home supports which is formerly known as SLP. So these two teams of people support clients that typically have a higher level of independence, and many of them are looking for employment, and they either live at home with their families or in a independent apartment that is not licensed. So supported employment specifically is competitive paid employment for the individuals that we serve. And our goals are to help them achieve success at work, to find job placement in a job that they want to be in, and to continue long-term support. It's called long-term follow-along, where our job coaches will help them navigate workplace, situations maybe with their boss, or helping them to better acclimate when it's a new job. Anyone interested in this service who's not currently receiving it can contact your county Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, DVR, and they'll set you up on the path to working with a job coach. In-home supports, as I said, is formerly known as SLP. So we do own 6 condos, and 11 individuals live in those condos, and they are independent, receiving some support from our staff, approximately 4 to 8 hours a week per person, depending on their budget and their needs. And then new, since fee for service, is going into a family home. So if a person is looking for placement in a group home or an apartment and hasn't been able to find it, as an interim step, we're able to go into their family home and provide services that way. So things like helping them function better within the family unit, taking them out into the community, budgeting, things of that nature. We do, here at Our House, we do currently have a waiting list for both of these services, but certainly reach out to Ken or Roxanne if you are interested. The next batch of slides, we're going to talk about money, about funding. So it is an area where we receive a lot of questions. So we thought we'd spend some time talking about kind of the state of things and how Our House is funded through Medicaid and Social Security. So this pie chart shows our funding sources at a glance for 2021. And you'll see that more than half of our funding is Medicaid. So that's when we say fee for service, that's what we mean. It's the dollars coming in to pay for the services that we provide. We do have some rental income, as Michelle mentioned. We are landlords, so there is a rental piece to anyone living in our homes. There's a big chunk of state COVID money. We received that throughout the pandemic from 2020 and 2021. That there's a tiny bit of that still happening, but for the most part, that revenue stream is over now that programs are open and people are getting back to work. And then, of course, we have our foundation. Kathy is going to talk later, but our foundation is the money raised through fundraising, donors, and events. We have a couple of people that are private pay, meaning that they or their families pay privately for our services. And last is support. So you'll see the supports that I just talked about is a smaller piece of the puzzle, but we are looking to continue to grow that area once more of the workforce is back to work. Next slide. A little bit more detail about some of the funding sources. So some of you on the call may remember prior to 2016, we were funded on a contract with the state of New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities, which is a mouthful, so we just call it DDD. We used to be paid up front for services before they were rendered. So at the beginning of each month, we got a pot of money, and that was our money to last through the month. I'm going to talk in the next few slides about the new way that we're funded. Division of Vocational and Rehabilitative Services, DVRS, mentioned that on the prior slide. Again, that's employment services, and that is how individuals are paid. That's typically temporary. So we work with an individual until they're able to be independent at their job. We also have contracts with a couple of local boards of education in neighboring counties. And again, Michelle mentioned that earlier, that's those transition services to help an individual acclimate from being in a public school environment, moving either to a day program environment or employment. And then the foundation, as you know, Our House Inc. receives grants and donations. It is a separate incorporation from Our House Foundation. So the foundation does the fundraising and then grants the money to Our House so that we can support our individuals, support our employees, the events that the foundation runs each year. We have the Our House Hour Run 4 miler, which is coming up. I believe it's in a week, right? But week or so. Beer, bourbon, and blackjack, which we're not having this year. Tee It Up for Our House, our new annual golf outing, and then of course our year-end writing campaign. So I'll leave it there, and I know Kathy's going to talk more. So, okay, getting into some of the details. So Medicaid fee-for-service is our main source of funding, and so what does that mean? Essentially, when your loved one is it's time, they've aged out of public school, they're in their late teens, early 20s. The first step is that they must qualify for Medicaid, and they are then enrolled into the community care waiver and or the supports waiver. And those waivers allow them to receive services in residential, in day programs, in employment services, in speech, in behavioral supports. Any number of services come under those waivers. As part of that process, each individual is assigned a tier level, and then that tier has a budget associated with it. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the NJCAT that you had to complete, the assessment tool, which determines the tier level. So you enroll in the waiver, you complete the assessment, you're assigned a tier, and then the tier dictates how much money you and your loved one have to spend on services. Tiers range from A, which is the lowest level of need, to EA, which is the highest level of need with a corresponding greater medical or behavioral need. From that point, the individual and their team, including their support coordinator, selects providers. You can select different providers for different things. We do have many clients who come to us, they live in our group homes and also attend our day programs, but we have a number of people who live in an Our House group home but attend a different day program, maybe the ARC or something like that. We then provide the services to the individuals and we bill Medicaid. And a couple of weeks later, we receive payment for those services. So it's the same model as when you and I go to the doctor or the dentist, they provide a service, they bill, and they get paid. The money, the bucket of this money, again, comes from that budget that was mentioned earlier. Half of it comes from the federal government and half comes through the state, all filtered through Medicaid. A point of note is that the rates at which we're paid are set by the government. We have zero say in what we charge. So we don't have any say in what we charge for speech or for a group home. Those rates are all set by the government. So when you think about why that's important, an agency such as Our House that has a very high standard and a very high level of quality, we are being paid the same as agencies that have poor quality and do not measure up to where Our House is. So acuities, what do they mean? This is a question that we do get asked. You'll see there's some examples over on the right. I'm going to touch on them, but I'm not going to read them. So behavioral acuity is built-in behavioral support, which covers assessments, plan development, staff training, crisis management, and it's individualized based on the current needs of the participant or the resident. Medical acuity is similar. It includes training for nursing staff and specialized level of medical care. So an example would be an individual with diabetes that requires insulin. So there's specialized nursing hours that have to be built into their care. There's medical training for the staff, things of that nature. So when the budget is set, those things are factored in and the acuity is built into the budget. So what that means, if you look on the right side of the screen, you'll see there that an individual with tier B who lives in a group home, the budget for their residential services is approximately $58,000 a year. So if an individual at tier B stayed in their home, in their group home 365 days, Our House would bill for that, and then we would receive approximately $58,000. The second example, tier C, is someone who has a bit of a higher level need. So they may also attend a day program and have some behavioral supports. Again, looking at 100% utilization, Our House would receive approximately $124,000 a year for all three of those services. And then you'll see tier E, which is a client with a higher need. You can see the significant difference there in rates, where we're looking at over $400,000 a year to serve that individual because of the higher need, whether it be behavioral or medical. And in some cases, the acuity, it can be both. It can be behavioral and medical. So these are just some examples of what a budget looks like and how we would be reimbursed for that. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do we get paid? Now that we know about budgets and we know what that means on an individual level, our staff, in addition to caring for your loved ones, has to record all of their movements throughout the day. They have to record all of the activities, and they have to record them in such a way that it shows that they're working on goals and they're working towards progress with the individuals that we serve. So each year at the IHP meetings, goals are set, and then our staff each day work to help the individuals achieve those goals. Day programs is extra complicated. We bill in 15-minute increments. So that means in an 8-hour day, every 15 minutes has to be accounted for with a note in our online system. We also can bill for transportation for folks who live outside a certain radius of our program. So if you live close to the program, we are not compensated for AM morning and afternoon transportation to and from the program. So we're paying staff, but we're not being reimbursed for that time. And the reason I'm mentioning that is just because when we look at the overall budget of the organization, that's an example of an expense that we have, an operating expense that's inherent in what we do, but that we don't get reimbursed for. Residential is a bit different. They record notes and progress for a 24-hour period. So as long as an individual is in the home and a service note is documented and they're in the home for at least 1 hour in that 24-hour period, we are paid for the daily rate. So day programs, 15-minute rates, residential 24-hour rates. Very big difference there. Next slide. And supports, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Depending on the service, there's different increments to bill. Some are 15 minutes, some are an hour. We did, within in-home supports, we did unlicense. Those condos used to be licensed through DDD. We unlicensed them, which would allow us to continue to provide flexible services to clients that don't need 24/7 care. It didn't make any sense because that's not what the individuals needed. So for us to have staff in a home 24/7, that's, we don't need, I don't need 20, you and I don't need that in our home. So if individuals don't need it, we took that away so that we could meet them where they are, as Michelle said earlier. We expanded to include people living in their family homes. And those family homes, of course, are not affiliated with our house in any way. Our staff for these services clock in and out via a state monitored phone app. And then each week we bill for the services collectively. And clinical services, which Danielle spoke about, speech and behavioral, those are again billed in 15-minute increments. As an example, speech pathology is billed at $26 for 15 minutes. So a little over $100 an hour is our reimbursement rate. Okay, so looking at the served individual and how do they factor into this and what's their contribution? So there's a lot on this slide, and I'm going to kind of just hit the high level pieces of it. So each person who lives in our group homes receives Social Security, and that is, for most of our people, that's their primary source of income. We have a number of people who have maybe have a trust or employment and have additional dollars coming in. But for the sake of this conversation, we're going to focus on Social Security because that's the most common income source that we have. So when you look at Medicaid and all that we just talked about on the past couple of slides, Medicaid is meant to cover services only, again, like a doctor or a dentist. It does not cover transportation. It does not cover housing, food, groceries, personal care, like a haircut. It only is meant to cover the service, which is essentially the staff, the personnel. So all of those other things that are part of daily life need to be paid for in other ways. So as the landlords of each group home, we do collect rent, and that of course covers things like maintenance of the homes, utilities, etc. And the example I have here is that, for argument's sake, let's say a resident's total income is $1,000. The resident is required by law to pay 30% of their income towards their rent. So in this case, they would pay $300 to Our House for rent. 50% goes to contribution to care, and that's all the other things that we mentioned. So it's things in the home such as groceries, toilet paper, light bulbs, all that kind of stuff. And then the last 20%, the individual retains for themselves for personal needs, which would be things like grooming, clothes, recreation, new bedding, any personal items or entertainment that they would like to purchase. Rent is then offset. So we have the $300 coming in for the rent. The state sets what's called fair market value for bedrooms. So the other, let's say, argument's sake, rent is $600. The resident's paying $300. The other $300 would come from the state via a voucher. The unfortunate part of this is, again, we have zero say in what the rental rates are. And right now, the state of New Jersey is using rental rates from 2017. They're 5 years behind. So that's something that we're advocating for at the state level to have that changed. Okay, rep payee, representative payee. Social Security recipients, so again, most of the people we serve are Social Security recipients. They must have a representative payee, also known as a rep payee. That person's responsible for the management of their funds and for reporting annually to Social Security on the spending and income. So that $1,000 that we talked about on the prior slide, that has to be accounted for and tracked and reported every year to Social Security in order for the person to maintain their benefit and to continue to receive it year after year. The guardian can sign this responsibility over to a provider. And this is a service Our House started offering a couple of years ago. Right now, we're rep payee for approximately 80% of our residents. The other 20% are either their own rep payee or their guardian is their rep payee. Rep payees are allowed to collect a management fee for this service. The rate is set at $45 a month per person. And these fees cover the management of the money, purchasing, banking, management of trust and burial accounts, and so forth. Some of you may know Martine. She's on our finance team. Her job is 100% dedicated to this, to being rep payee and managing the money of your loved ones and of the people that we are representative payee for. Contribution to care, I'm not going to get too in depth on because we talked a little bit about that, but again, that covers vehicles, utilities, household goods, groceries. Transportation and vehicles are a huge, huge expense for any agency. So some of this money does go to that. We have the discretion as a provider to set the amount that we charge for contribution to care. Some agencies charge less than we do. Some take all of the leftover money after rent. We felt that 50% is fair to then allow the residents some additional spending money for their own needs. And then any other expenses, such as guardianship fees, burial cost contributions, new bedroom furniture, room decor, et cetera, that all comes out of the 25% that the resident keeps. Shared furniture, such as a couch or a table, we pay for those as a provider. We've had instances where guardians have agreed to split the cost, or a family member may donate new furniture. That's a really big help to our agency. You know, when you think about what it costs to maintain one home, again, there's 18 of them that are very well loved. There are, there's 4 to 6 residents plus a number of staff utilizing the furniture day in and day out. So our houses can be very well loved. So it just something to think about. It does help us when families can contribute to those purchases. And then, of course, any repairs to the home are covered by the provider under the residency agreements. Because we are a landlord, we do cover those fees. Okay, and you're probably getting sick of my voice. This is my last slide. Fleet management. So our house currently has a fleet of 120 vehicles. It is comprised about 80% of minivans. You can see the lovely picture of the Dodge Caravan over there on the right. We have a few smaller cars, and we do have 3 maintenance trucks. So fleet management is a job in and of itself. It consists of all the paperwork, registration, handicap placards, repairs, accidents, Easy Pass, gas, GPS, car washes, purchasing and selling cars, you name it. So again, think of one car times 120. We do work with enterprise fleet management to help outsource some of the administrative tasks associated with this. A minivan today costs about $38,000. Prior to fee-for-service, when we opened a program, the state would give us vehicles to go with the home or the program. That doesn't happen anymore under fee-for-service. We receive $0 from Medicaid or the state. So we have chosen as an agency to operate mainly on an equity lease payment plan for vehicles, so that when they start to have wear and tear, we can turn them over. We have some equity built in them and can buy new ones. To give you an example, July through December of last year, 2021, we spent $262,000 on transportation. So about $500,000 a year strictly on vehicles and transportation. So that's a pretty big number. Aside from personnel, that is our biggest expense. From a safety standpoint, we do equip each vehicle with a tracker. It allows us to monitor speeds and locations of all vehicles. We implemented these back in 2016. Our speeding and accidents have dropped dramatically. We get real-time alerts. If someone goes over a certain threshold of speeding, we get alerted. And we are able to use the trackers to help if there's an investigation, if there's an issue. It helps us pinpoint where any of the people that we serve are, and it also helps us with any staff issues. All employees have their driving record checked prior to employment, and every quarter we rerun their motor vehicles. If they achieve a certain number of points, I shouldn't say achieve, it's not really an accomplishment, but if they rack up a certain number of points, we do send them to defensive driving class, and eventually we will terminate if the driving record is not kept clean. And I think that's it for me. Turning it over to Tori, I think.
Hello again. So that's a lot of information, right? So you can imagine what it takes to monitor all of this information that comes in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our internal controls and how we determine program quality and some of the checks and balances that we operate with on a daily basis. So our quality is determined by various benchmarks, some of which include our rate of turnover, staff fill rate by program, number of UIRs. And if you're not familiar with that, it's unusual incident reports. And those are incidents that are of a certain severity that are reportable to the state. And then, of course, by any and all incidents that occur on a day-to-day basis. Some of the things we do at our house to maintain our quality at our programs is conduct several different types of audits. Our nurses go out to all of the day programs and group homes and do audits on medical documentation and make sure that they're receiving the services that they need. They provide training on special, medical diagnoses and any specialized medical treatment that they need. They review medication on a daily, weekly, quarterly basis. And then that kind of brings me into some of our homes some are more medical than others, some are more behavioral than others, some are both. You will find that some homes are coupled with individuals that require a lot of medical attention as well as behavioral services. You'll find some homes that are more medical and there's, no behavioral component or vice versa. And then some that don't really have any at the moment. And At those locations where there's more individuals with medical needs or behavioral needs, the staff are paid at a differential rate. They're paid a little bit higher. The work that they need to perform on a daily basis is a little bit more intense, and it does require oftentimes specialized training to handle, those situations with care and appropriately. So fun fact, our biggest department here at our house is actually our quality assurance department, which many of you might not know, but they operate behind the scenes. And they are the ones monitoring all of this information that comes in. And they are putting it all together so that as a team, we can meet in two different committees that we operate to go over all of this information, determine what level of quality we were at, determine short-term and long-term goals, how we can improve areas of risk, and so on and so forth. We have our corporate compliance committee. They meet quarterly. We convene to review and report any instances of suspected or verified Medicaid fraud, waste, and abuse. The good thing is we often don't see a high number of those incidents, which allows us to focus on other things. We also have a continuous quality improvement committee, which is a mouthful, so we call it CQI. This is the committee where you will see a lot of data come in from the quality assurance department regarding turnover, incidents by program, medication errors, driving infractions, everything that we track. And we go through trends, we identify programs or day services sites where we can do better or focus on those areas moving forward, provide additional training, et cetera. So the department itself is comprised of quality assurance specialists as well as trainers. So in that department is also our lead trainer, and he's responsible for training all of our current staff and all of our new staff, and then to assist us with maintaining compliance throughout the year, both with Medicaid, DDD, licensing, of course, and then CARF compliance. And then there's a whole lot more, but that is the big picture. And then Nicole is going to talk a little bit about some of our external controls.
Thank you, Tori. So in addition to the internal determinants of program quality, we also have external quality and reporting standards. So for residential licensing standards, we have an annual on-site review and a renewal of licensure for each site by DDD. Policies and procedures are reviewed and revised annually to ensure compliance with state laws and rules governing community residences for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It gets pretty stressful in the couple weeks before licensing, but Tori always does an amazing job. We always get the paperwork in that we need. Day habilitation standards, we also have formal reviews and on-site inspections by DDD. We haven't had one since before COVID because we routinely receive the 3-year interval audits, which are the highest standard for DDD to give to day programs based on overall compliance and quality of the programs. We pretty much receive, we do receive 100% approval for the 3-year intervals as long as Hope Autism Solutions has been a program as well as that. For supports, every 3 years, our house pursues CARF accreditation to allow the employment services at the agency. CARF was last completed in 2021. For community care program standards and supports program manual standards, these include standards of service provider quality management. These include employee development and training, so completion of all DDD mandated trainings, background and exclusion checks, which are completed by HR prior to hiring. We also conduct exclusion checks on a monthly basis to check the central registry. These also include auditing and fraud detection measures by quality assurance, incident reporting and risk management. We follow Division Circular 20 and report all unusual incidents to DDD. We adhere to the human rights standards as per our Human Rights Committee. So that usually follows our Behavior Support Committee. We follow performance and outcomes measurements for service improvement. We conduct annual quality management plans with goals and improvement practices on an annual basis. In addition to all of these things, we also receive quarterly OPIA reports, which are from the Office of Program Integrity and Accountability. And those are also very impressive for our house. We maintain a 0% threshold, which is the best measure of outcomes for this report on the OPIA risk indicator report. And we've maintained that 0% threshold for quite some time. And there's also some fiscal standards. Medicaid can just show up whenever they want on the spot, whenever they want to come in and check any of our paperwork. So we always have to make sure that that's completely up to date and compliant with current Medicaid standards. Social Security, so we quarterly, our finance department pulls client financials as well as submitting annual reporting to Social Security for each participant served. We have an annual SACS audit, which is a financial audit in which the department has to create financials and submit them to DDD for review. And then we also have an annual 401k plan audit, and we have to follow specific threshold requirements. And I believe Kathy is next. Nope, nope. Oh,
Michelle is.
Okay.
That's okay. So one of the areas that we also focus on, and I know a lot of you are concerned about, is obviously our hiring and retention challenges. These challenges, I've been here for 17 years. I started off here as the recruiter at our house, and I had just completed my master's degree and written a thesis on how to recruit staff in the nursing field, because there was a lot more data on that at the time. And I came in here thinking I was going to change everything. And 17 years later, we're still dealing with a lot of the same issues that I was dealing with back then. You know, it's not the most glamorous work. You do not hear any kid when they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a direct service professional. I don't think we'll ever hear anybody, maybe someday we will. But not many kids are going to grow up and say they want to be a direct service professional. It is, as you know, it is very, very hard work. It is very physical. Sometimes it results in injuries. It is, like I said, like we all said, 24/7, working holidays, working weekends. If, you know, there's some challenges with it as far as workforce, if I want to leave at 5 p.m. because I have a doctor's appointment, I can do so. However, if our staff has a doctor's appointment at 5 p.m. and their coverage does not show up to relieve them, they cannot leave. So, you know, that can be very tough. It is not the best paying field, although we have increased that dramatically over the past few years. And, you know, a lot of our staff have kids, and it is very hard to work an evening or overnight shift and find childcare, as you can imagine. So we don't have a lot of positions that are between the hours of 9 and 5. A lot of our hours in the homes are, you know, between 3 and 11, and 11 to 7, or on the weekends. And it's hard to find staff who want to work those. And of course, the pandemic added another level of challenges. We, you know, we have a lot of staff who had to care for their loved ones who have long haul COVID symptoms. They were very scared of getting COVID when it was going on. You know, they were afraid to come into the homes when they were COVID positive and then go home. Put yourself in their shoes when COVID was going on and they would have to come to work. Because that was their job, and they were committed to the people that we work with. But then they also had the risk of bringing that home to their own families. And then we have to compete with big box employers like Walmart, Amazon, Target, other places like that can pay a little bit more, that can offer more benefits because they have the resources to do that, and they can change prices of their products that they sell to help offset those costs. But then again, on the other side of it, we have a number of staff who are committed to what we do. Right now, our biggest challenge is actually recruiting. It's not the retention side of things. We have what we do is we celebrate our lifers every year. And that is a lifer is somebody who's been with our house for over 5 years. So you have a number of, like, almost everybody here is a lifer. Michelle will be a lifer in 4 years. But if you've been here for over 5 years, you're considered a lifer because you're just never leaving, obviously. So we celebrate those. And I can tell you, prior to taking over about 7 years ago, we had people who we would add a couple people every year to be a lifer, and we probably had about 25 people. Today we have 80 people, over 80 people who are on our lifers list. And every year we add a huge chunk. I think last year, now you can verify, did we add like 20 people last year? I want to say it was a large number of people. So, our house is doing all of the right things. We have a lot of people who have been here for a very long period of time. And obviously that is one of our goals because that helps with the services that we provide. They know your loved one. They know how to work with them. Your loved one trusts them and knows them. And that has always been my goal since I started a very long time ago. So we will continue to work and try and achieve that. And you can see over on the right-hand side, some of our statistics. I have a screen blocking that, so I can't see it. I apologize, but there goes our head count as part of it. So our tenure, as we have over the past few years, has increased. So now most people stay over 5 years, which is unheard of in our industry. Our industry has a very, very high turnover rate, usually around 50%, if not higher. And you can see that ours is significantly lower than that. Going to turn this over to Kathy in a second.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So we're going to talk about fundraising. Why do we fundraise? Well, as Natalie had mentioned a few items earlier, we have a lot of things to supplement Our House Inc. with. We raise money to cover maintenance on group homes, and our condos. We raise money for program sites and renovating homes. We hope to continue to open program sites. And to open a day program site, the cost is between $250,000 and $350,000. We also fund recreation programs, bonuses, and increases to staff. How do we do this? We raise money through grants, through our events. Our golf event is coming up in October 16th, 17th. And our run event, which is on May 14th, and we hope to see you there. Our year-end campaign, each year in November, we hold a writing rally, and board members and staff and community members and family members come in and write personalized notes to each of our donors. And each year we raise about $170,000 for that campaign. Sometimes an emergency comes up and we hold an emergency campaign. And this past fall, we held one for staff retention and raised within just 2 weeks, $200,000, which was much needed to keep on our staff. Where do we get the funds from? We get them from families such as you, board members, community organizations, corporations, and foundations. How are the funds used? Well, each grant that we write is typically for a project or a program specific. Events, our year-end campaign, and general donations are transferred to Inc., Our House Inc., for programs or projects, whatever the need is, as well as general operating monies. Right now, I'm happy to say we are in the quiet phase of an endowment capital campaign. Over the next 5 years, well, we're in our third year, I should say, starting our third year. But for 5 years, our goal is to raise $12 million. And as I mentioned, starting our third year, we're already at 6.7 million. What are we raising the money for? The team sat down and really thought about it long and hard and came up with 3 areas of need that we're focusing on. One is raising money for hiring behaviorists, speech pathologists, occupational therapists. Second is to open more day programs and renovate group homes. The biggest chunk of this campaign is our endowment. We're looking to raise $4 million. An endowment is an investment account for our future. And that money will be used for maintenance on homes and sustainability of staff. How can you help? You can help by setting up a fundraising page for our run on May 14th. It's easy. Any issues, please give me a call, extension 122. In November, we hold a year-end campaign. I'd love to see you come in and help us write notes to donors. You can leave our house in your will. You can visit our website and learn all about donor advised funds. You can invest in our campaign, our endowment capital campaign. You can even introduce me to contacts that you have at foundations or corporations or local organizations that we can go to for funding, or perhaps they would be interested in being a site for our participants to volunteer at. You can even fundraise on your own. Perhaps you'd have a yard sale or set up a Facebook page, hold a cocktail party with friends, and tell them all about our house and ask them if they'd be interested in supporting. And I have to share with you that a few years ago, a neighborhood in New Providence, Pineway, where we have a group home, held a block party. And a group of children decided they were going to raise funds for our house. And they held a lemonade stand, and they raised $1,800. They are my future fundraisers. So please, any way you can help, we'd appreciate it, and feel free to reach out. Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Nicole.
Thank you, Kathy. So in addition to fundraising, there are some ways that families can get involved with overall outreach and connections. So we encourage all families to be a partner, working with Our House to ensure that the services offered are the best for the served individual, and that Our House is able to provide them, whether it be financially, physically, logistically, any of those leads. Serving as an ambassador by promoting the mission and importance of the organization. Being a connector by engaging with personal and professional networks to support the organization, including helping to cultivate prospective donors, holding fundraising events, recruiting staff, etc. Supporting the organization financially, as Kathy mentioned, by giving directly or working with your network to give. Our House is able to offer enhanced services because of these donations. We're able to offer a lot of our structured recreational programming, which is quite pricey if we really want, engaged, motivating people to host those types of activities. Also encouraging positive relationships with other Our House families and participating in call to actions. We encourage everyone to contact your local representatives and be an advocate. And at the end of the slides, there'll be a little bit more information on exactly how to do that. And I will turn it over to Tori.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the core responsibilities of the family as it relates to staff relations and how you guys can be a positive impact in the home when working with the staff to care for your loved ones. Obviously, first and foremost, the most important is to treat the staff and the administrators with respect, both verbally and in writing. We know that situations can get stressful when they're living in a community placement, and there's lots of different things that can happen and go on, but the staff are really doing their best. Understand that administrators and staff need to follow HIPAA guidelines while communicating about certain situations. Obviously, there's going to be different things and events that come up that may involve someone else that your loved one lives with in their home. And just understand that we may not be able to give you details on the situation regarding that specific individual, and to respect those boundaries and their privacy as it relates to that. And And then to respect the rules and regulations that our house staff need to follow, including guidelines from DDD and Medicaid. It's a little bit different when they're home with you, and the rules that you guys have to follow are a lot different than the ones that we have to follow when caring for them in a group home or a supervised apartment. So when the staff have to make certain calls during emergency situations, or they have to tell you somebody's going to call you back and give you the information later, just respect that they're doing what they are trained to do. Honor professional boundaries. A lot of our staff, like we said before, are working around the clock, difficult hours, overnight positions and things like that. So when they are off, including the site managers who are often working 24 hours a day, just to respect their time off, they need the break so that they can, recuperate and re-energize and come back ready to go. And obviously to communicate issues as they occur and escalate following the chain of command. Obviously go to the site manager or the day program director of the location first. And if something's not being handled appropriately, then reach out to the department director or the area director of the program. And if you don't know who that is, obviously at any point, you can reach out to any of us and we'll, guide you in the right direction. And then to recognize professional supports versus natural supports. So understanding our role as a provider and not a family member, and understanding our barriers as they are. So all of those external funding sources that we were talking about, our budgetary limits, obviously right now, our biggest issue, our staffing limits, and just respecting the rights of the individuals served. And then, of course, to work on creating positive and impactful relationships with the staff at the home, because having positive relationships with family members goes a long way. And then obviously gives the staff a lot of confidence and encouragement to do a really good job at their job. So I don't know who I'm handing it over to, but I'm guessing Michelle.
It's me. Thank you, Tori. So there was a lot of good information about what we do now. But I want to talk a little bit, just a couple minutes more about what we're going to do what we're looking to do in the future. We are looking to move the feasibility of moving our individuals who live in what are called our supervised apartments, which are 2-family homes, and we call them 3-bedroom apartments. They're up and down. There's 2 different floors and there are a lot of steps. So that is not the best house situation for our individuals who are aging. So we're looking at moving them to ranch style homes. I am working with DDD on trying to move some of the funding that is for those homes into a new home so that we can afford those houses and move them even faster. Our goal has always been to develop at least 1 house a year and 1 day program a year. We have 1 house that's under construction right now in Watchung, which is super exciting. And that will, we have a group of residents who live in one of our supervised apartments. They'll be moving into that house. We are looking obviously for the other houses, but we also want to develop another house for outside our house, for new Our House residents to move into. As you can imagine, the housing market makes that very challenging. Day programs, we do generally try and develop a day program a year. With the staffing shortage going on, we've just put this on hold for a bit. We're not going to do one just right now. So we'll look to do one in the future, but that is definitely something that we always look to do. We are looking to expand our in-home support services. We're looking to increase technology within the homes in a number of different ways. We're looking to expand our support service, our clinical support services, and that is going to be very dependent on our capital campaign, which Kathy touched on, and that is a way that we're going to be able to easily do that. And then we're going to continue to work to make sure that Our House is an employer of choice. You saw our retention, not schedule, but our retention percentage, and it's excellent. And the way that we do that is by continually being competitive and continually looking at that so that we can have the best employees in the business and that they feel valued and respected and want to stay here and want to bring then other good employees on board. Nicole touched on legislative involvement. Every once in a while, I send out an email and I say, you know, there's this bill in Congress, or call your local representative and advocate for increased pay, or advocate for transportation to be included, or advocate for increased day program rates. All of those are so important. And you as family members have great voices because you can personally tell your story of how that affects you. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. I've always been very nervous prior to doing this, I was always nervous to call. It's very easy to call the person who answers. That's their job. They answer, they listen to you, they take a note, and they pass it along to your local representative, or maybe you speak to your local representative if you're lucky. But that is important for us. And you are our greatest advocates in this area. So I encourage you, whenever I send those calls to action out, to in fact make that call. Here are some resources that we provided for you. If the DD Guide for Family, if you were to suspect abuse, there's a supports manual on here, so you can read all that Natalie was talking about before. If you want to make a referral to DVRS, DGD they hold monthly communication webinars every month, and you can find out what's going on in the state. And with DGD, that's very helpful. They also send out periodic communications. I usually try and forward those on to you, but if you want to be up to the moment, you can sign up for those through that link. The OPIA report, I encourage everybody to go and look at the OPIA report and look at the other agencies and where our house is in comparison to some of the other agencies, just to give you a better idea of the services that we provide. And like Tori touched on, the quality of our services, because we have such a large quality assurance department. We think that is key to the services that we obviously provide. And then there's a crisis response system if somebody is in crisis. We had received a couple of questions prior to it. So Michelle's going to go through those, and some of our staff here are going to answer those for you.
Yes, and just a reminder that there is a Q&A feature on the bottom of your computer screen or your phone screen where you can type in a question right now. And if we have enough time, we will get to it. We have about 15 minutes left. So the first question that we received is, what are the long-term plans for the day programs and the investments that are planned?
Sure, I'll answer that. So as Michelle touched on, typically we strive to open one new day program per year. However, due to the current staffing shortages and the lower enrollment, we will be postponing any new program openings until those things are resolved. But hopefully in the next few years, we'll be back up at a level where we can sustain a new program.
The next question kind of piggybacks off of that. What is being done to explore and expand additional opportunities for our clients to make their days more engaging, consistent, and more functional?
I will also answer that one. So this is something that we think about every day. The directors think about it every day. Danielle and her team think about it every day, just how we can better serve the participants and give them quality activities. Pre-COVID, all of our schedules were awesome, and we had packed days, and they were out in the community consistently, and everybody had volunteer activities. But a lot of those volunteer activities also serve vulnerable populations, and they still have restrictions in place where we cannot attend them at the same level that we were attending pre-COVID. So they could have their own staffing shortages, they could have restrictions on who enters their buildings. So we have been relying on a lot of the structured recreational activities, a lot of in-house activities, a lot of the food prep programs, but it is on our radar to bring our focus back to volunteer activities. We are just at the mercy of those community sites. So hopefully as things get back to normal, we'll be able to incorporate more of those activities and get everybody back to where they were before COVID. And we also encourage everyone to, on this call or any of your network or your friends or your families, if they have any places that would be willing to have us volunteer at their community site, I would be happy to take any of those recommendations, and I will reach out directly.
Thank you. Next question is, in the listing of services provided to Our House participants, are in-home services such as behavioral supports afforded to participants who are for day program only clients?
Hi, Michelle. I will answer that. So in-home support for behavioral services is a part of the expansion of clinical services that Michelle mentioned within the future of our house, and also what Kathy mentioned and the capital campaign. So that money that they're raising for that campaign is essentially going to build out those services so that in the future we can offer in-home support specifically for behavioral clients within that realm.
We have another question for you, Danielle. Is there a behavior technician or BCBA at every day program site? If an incident occurs either with a participant or between participants, what are the steps to prevent it from happening?
Okay, so part one, there is a behaviorist assigned to every day program, and also the group homes that Tori mentioned that have that differential rate. So they have those enhanced behavioral needs. And then the registered behavior technicians, or the RBTs, they float around. In addition to myself and Hank, we float around to all the programs and all the residential programs. So we're not stationed, but we are present in those situations. And the second question was in regards to if there is an conflict between individuals, how to resolve. So a general broad answer to that question is that we would assess the situation as it states, and each individual person and their needs. So we would first look at the environmental engineering. So we would look at what's going on in the environment. Can we move around seating positions? Can we move around groups? Is there some other means to kind of get them to either separate and or to kind of resolve those issues without having to create more plans or put in more support? So we always look at what's the least amount of support we need to, progress that situation. And like, again, we'll look at kind of how those things work out, and then we'll work with the program director and or the residential director to resolve any additional issues that come from that if those environmental factors don't resolve on their own, and work with each participant as an individual, and then try to make sure we kind of hit on those points.
Thank you. Progress reports used to be sent by the program directors for Hope Autism Solutions before the pandemic. Will they continue going forward, and will this apply to our VAP participants as well?
I will answer that, Michelle. So prior to COVID, the staff were completing daily communication logs, which were sent home to guardians. We have been very, very short-staffed, and a lot of the staff are wearing different hats and taking on different roles. So it's been difficult with, supervising the participants effectively and completing all the other required documentation to put that back in place. But that's definitely something that is on our radar to do within the next few months.
Thank you. I feel like everyone might have this question, but are masks required for the foreseeable future?
I will also answer that one. So currently we are following the division guidelines that were distributed on March 24th, and as well as the screening guidelines. I believe Michelle had sent those out through Constant Contacts to all the guardians and the agency. So masks are currently not required for program participants. They are required for staff members who are unvaccinated. They are not required for staff members who are vaccinated. However, any participant or staff that chooses to wear a mask at day program will be allowed to do so.
Thank you. So that was all the questions that we received ahead of time, and now we have some that are coming through the Q&A feature. Again, that's at the bottom of your screen. So what training do staff get to operate the Our House vehicles in our fleet?
Michelle, it's Natalie. I'll take that one. So our vehicles are majority, with the exception of maybe two, they are just they're standard cars, a sedan or a minivan. So there's no special training in particular on our vehicles, but we do require a clean driving record upon hire. We follow guidance from our insurance company on that. We do quarterly checks so that if anyone has a suspended license or any infractions, we address those accordingly. That can include sending them to defensive driving class all the way up through and including termination if they're not able to get their driving record in order. We have GPSs on the vehicles in order to monitor speed, hard braking, idling, frequent stops. All of those things are monitored by GPS. We go through policy and procedure training at new hire training, which includes things like acknowledging, signing off by employees that they will not use their cell phone while driving, that they must use hands-free, things of that nature. We do have behavioral training for the staff to learn how to handle any behavior issues that may arise while they're driving. We keep small ratios in the vehicles. There are a couple of vehicles that are handicap accessible, wheelchair accessible, so those are trained for the specific staff. They learn how to operate any additional equipment. But for the majority of our staff, there's not vehicle specific training that's required.
Okay, thank you. Is Our House able to raise the salaries of the direct service professionals in the house, or is this regulated by the federal government or the state?
I'll take this one too. So kind of twofold answer to this. The state through the federal government has increased direct care staff wages approximately $1 an hour for the past 4 years. Every year Our House has done additional on top of that. So 1 year we did $1.25 all the way up until this year, 2022. Our staff all received $3 an hour increases. Couple of things to consider there too is New Jersey minimum wage is going up. So that is part of why the state is giving us those dollar increases to get us to minimum wage. But it's Our House's goal to always be above and beyond that. And currently all of our lowest starting wage right now is $16.50 an hour. So we do have, we are well beyond where the state requires us to be. The other factor to consider is compression. So you have to consider that when you raise direct care staff wages, it does require everyone in their chain of command to also have their wages increased.
Okay, thank you. So one of our attendees would like us to talk a little bit more about donor advised funds so the parents and family members can increase their donations to OHI or OHF and still benefit the donor to reduce taxes and required minimum distribution or RMD for parents over 70 years old. So is there any way that we can facilitate a financial advisor to do a workshop for parents, guardians who may be interested?
I'll take that one. Yes, we did a mailing last year about the donor advised fund and all the details on that, but I think that's a great idea. I think that we should, I know who sent in this question, and I'd like to just talk to her tomorrow and we can come up with an idea on how best to present this. And yes, we can have someone come in and speak about it. Absolutely.
Okay, so stay tuned, everyone. The next question is specific to Bridgewater, but when are you expecting to have all the participants back in the day program at Bridgewater?
I'll answer this, Michelle. So since last May, when we reopened all the day programs, we've been focusing on staffing all the programs, as we've said a couple times throughout the presentation. We have been bringing back participants based on when we hire staff. Bridgewater, our day program, and our group homes are harder to staff because of locations of the programs and because of the locations where the staff typically reside. But we have been interviewing weekly. We're hoping to bring back, there's about 4 participants that are back at Bridgewater, and we're hoping to bring them back as soon as we can. So I do know who asked this question as well. And as soon as we have an answer on that, I will send an email update.
So we have about 4 minutes left. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. So last chance to submit anything that might pertain to the broader audience.
Otherwise, we can all go after in 4 minutes early, and then that's a successful webinar, I think, when it ends a little bit earlier than what you expect. So if a question pops up, in the meantime, let me know, Michelle. But I do want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I want to thank all the staff who worked so hard on this presentation. We are going to schedule another webinar for the fall because I do think that it's important for us to educate you and to make sure that any issues that pop up, we can talk about together. In the meantime, I hope to see all of you at the Our House run on May 14th. And Kathy did not announce it, and this is brand new, so she probably, but CBS is going to be broadcasting live from our run. So great job to Kathy for working with CBS and getting that done. So CBS, John Elliott will be there. As you know, he's a big advocate for Our House, but actual CBS will be broadcasting live that morning from the run. So come out, get on TV, and in the meantime, support us with a page or donating to one of them. Tori is actually running that day. God bless her. She took me around the route, and I'm glad she is running and representing Our House, and I don't have to do that because I would die after the first 2 seconds, I think. But see our website or social media, and like Kathy said, you can contact Michelle Petrino, not me, Michelle Petrino, to set up that webpage, or Kathy, and they will help you. And again, I hope to see you on October 2nd at our Achievement Awards. We are bringing back our Achievement Awards. Keep your fingers crossed that we're able to have them, but they are going to be on October 2nd at the Hanover Manor, and more information will be coming out to you in the summer. So look out for that. Thank you again, everybody, for your participation, for your good questions, for your attention to this. And I hope you have a great evening. And if you haven't had a margarita yet, have a margarita on me tonight, and enjoy your day. Have a great weekend, and thank you and good night.